here.
Riley, great monologue. You had me fired up. Thank you for what you're doing, and I'm glad to join you today.
Well, I appreciate that very much, sir. And I would say thank you for what you're doing because you and your colleagues have a golden opportunity to right the ship in this country once and for all.
We're going to continue to do right by the citizens that elected us. Look, it's not easy. We're playing with a one vote margin, but we're going to continue to get the legislation and policies out of the House of Representatives. The policies that we campaigned on, we can get them out. Okay. So the Save America Act, which is a legit great way to make sure we have election integrity, starts with very simple things. One, prove you're a citizen. Two, show your ID when you vote. I posted on my social media earlier today, actually, the video of President Obama going to go vote for himself, and he shows his own ID. So, I mean, the derangement that the Democrats have, especially with their own, where it polls at 70%, is crazy. But again, this is something that they are falling on their sword on.
And what do you make of that, Congressman? Do you really think this is just a horrible, rabid, maybe incurable case of TDS?
1,000%. The Democrats, there's, and I'll sidebar with some of them, and you would be shocked how much the internal conversations point out where they appreciate the president, appreciate the president's policies, appreciate safety in their communities, but they know they will be eviscerated by their base if they go and embrace these notions publicly. And this is no different why the Mondamis of the world then get oxygen.
Well, with respect, Congressman, and maybe you would agree, but if you don't have the fortitude internally to stand by what is right and speak the truth, even when it goes against your base, you don't deserve a seat in Congress.
No, look, those that have lost the will to stomach and fight for the right reasons, no matter what your party affiliation is, it's time to go. And you have some members that are retiring this year, and they're taking some positions that maybe are a little bit more contrary to where they've been historically. But sometimes politics is a little much to stomach when ultimately we're talking about the future of our kids. We're talking about our communities. We're talking about international security of our placement in the globe.
Absolutely. I mean, this is everything, Congressman. And I wish just for 1 second Democrats would see that. I think they do, honestly. They just, as you alluded to, they can't support it because it's coming from President Trump. However, that also brings us to the Senate because the fight in the House is a whole lot different than the fight we would see in the Senate. So if you and your colleagues do pass this measure, how do you think it would fare in the upper chamber?
Well, I feel we will pass the Save America Act, and it'll be kind of probably a little bit of a jam to the Senate. But because there is such a rabid support across both party lines outside of the electeds, that the pressure will then start to hopefully ensue. Because I mean, you know what? I don't care if you're in deep blue California, you still want integrity in your elections.
I so agreed. It's just good governance, common sense. I wonder, Congressman, why this issue is even partisan at all.
Again, it just comes back to the executive office. This would never be something that would have been proposed by the Otto Penn administration, but where President Trump has made the election integrity issues such a cornerstone of concerns, as he in his own right has had elections that have been questionable to a number of degrees of levels, both at a local level or at a national level or state level. You know what? This is one way we just solve some of those problems. If you're showing an ID and you show that you are a valid registered voter in that state, then you get to cast a vote. As simple as that. There's going to be some finger pointing of where state jurisdictions lie, but at the end of the day, we're not telling states how to cast your votes. I don't know if you realize that the entire state of Washington State is all mail-in ballot. You know what? You can still do that in Washington State, but when you get your ballot, you're going to have to show your ID.
Well said. That brings me to another couple of questions for you, Congressman. Number one, when it comes to this idea of federalizing the election process for presidential elections, we know there's been some pushback to that, of course, from Democrats because it's coming from the White House. But what do you think about that idea?
So, look, I think when it comes to federal officers, it would be nice if we had a federal standard. So, I mean, I don't have a problem with that at all.
Okay.
But again, when you're talking about local districts, county commissions, city commissions, what have you, city councils, I feel like since those are of a local jurisdiction, then let the locals have whatever type of terms, election cycle, qualifying, you name it. Federal is different because it's a federal officer at a national level. There should be parity when it comes to those standards of elections, in my opinion.
Understood. Now, some other things that have been proposed too, such as doing away with the whole mail-in ballot system, doing away with early voting, absentee ballots except for military members. What are some of your thoughts about those proposals as well?
So in Florida, that's the one thing we really do well is mail-in balloting. But I hate to kind of remind Floridians of our past. We had a problem back in 2000. So with the elections that we had in the 2000 presidential cycle, we changed how we did business. And look, it was a difficult transition for us to make. But now Florida elections run like a sewing machine, and the results are out at 7:15 when the elections are closed. The polls are closed at 7 p.m. But we had to learn a lesson. We had to make some difficult changes. Unfortunately, other states need to do the same thing. Remember, the difference was Florida was the pivotal swing state for the whole outcome of that 2000 election cycle. And until a state is in that type of a pivotal set of crosshairs, they may not make the change because they don't feel the urgency to make the change. Years ago, my supervisor of elections says, Jimmy, I hope your election's a blowout. And I'm thinking that's a weird thing to hear from my supervisor of elections. And he said, if it's a blowout, that means there's not a recount. So again, until you have a problem, you may not see change. And the president's pointing out problems.
Understood. Now, one last thing I'd like to ask you about, sir. So, and this is in your home state as well. I have so much respect for your governor, Ron DeSantis, and he just did something fascinating, passing a new law that says all driver's tests for the license must be taken in English. I'd like to get your reaction to that.
A novel idea. You know what? We live in the United States, and all of our traffic signs and our directional signs are all in English. Don't you think you need to be able to read a speed limit, a stop sign, a yield sign? So I appreciate the leadership of the legislature and Governor DeSantis on this legislation. And I'll remind people, you may not realize this, but globally, if you're a commercial airline pilot, doesn't matter where you're landing, you must speak English to the control tower. All the dialogues between the pilot, the captain, and the control tower before landing, no matter if it's in France or Africa or Australia, you name it, it must be in English. This is no different. This is a way we understand loud and clear the rules of the road.
Very well said. Congressman, I know you're busy, but just before we let you go, I want to say thank you for everything you're doing in D.C. This country truly needs it.
Well, Riley, again, you are just as much of a fighter in that fight with us. Thank you for holding us accountable. I look forward to being with you real soon again.
As do I. Coming up